Good evening, everybody. Welcome back again to Kopi Chats with me, Wei Lin. Again, every day we'll talk about, or near to every day, we'll talk about all the news fit to share online, fit to share on YouTube. And today, as usual, I've got some great stuff. Best show ever, best one yet, just for you. So brace yourself. Malaysia is to halt export of chicken to Singapore. So it turns out that Malaysia's government is really concerned about a shortage of chicken in Malaysia. 3.6 million chickens a month shall be spared from reaching the shores of Singapore to address domestic shortage and rising prices. And that's a big deal. Seems like there's a shortage of everything and everywhere nowadays. Ukraine leading to, war in Ukraine leading to a shortage of wheat, shortage of fertilizer. And we all know that's a big deal because, fertilizer, all agriculture is downstream of fertilizer. If a major source of fertilizer, say from Russia or Ukraine, is cut off, that's huge on all agriculture downstream. I don't know why the chicken thing came up. Could it be that feed, has been harder to come by? I'm not really sure. The Prime Minister, the Malaysian government said it disappointed with the actions on companies that stopped the supply of chicken, causing an increase in prices and lack of supply in the market. And this isn't something that not only affects Malaysia. I'll show you another example subsequent to this one. The government also added the government's priorities are own people, understandably so, and correctly so, I might add. Let's see. The Singapore authorities are very concerned. According to the Singapore Food Agency, Singapore imports about 1/3 of its chicken supply from Malaysia, so that's a big deal. You expect that the cost of chicken will rise substantially, and Singapore government is saying that switch your choices, have frozen chicken instead of chilled chicken. Most people prefer chilled chicken. We just think it tastes better, but yeah, I reckon that a lot of people will be switching around. No idea yet if prices will be going up, but there's an excellent chance that it will, and that affects me as well. There's a little bit more to be said on this. Singapore chicken importers say it's difficult to pivot to other sources on short notice as Malaysia curbs exports. Yeah, it all came rather abruptly, and I don't know that this problem can be sorted out, in a matter of like weeks. I don't know if it'll go to months, but it will take a while. I'm sure ultimately it'll be sorted out, but it is a matter of great concern, right? Let's see, what are the places that supply chicken to Singapore? Brazil, Malaysia, USA, and others. Number of approved countries for poultry imports, nearly 30. It's been pretty stable, hasn't changed much. Yeah. Almost all of the chickens from Malaysia were imported as live chickens that were slaughtered and chilled in Singapore. Yep. Oh, Brazil's a huge supplier of chicken, it turns out. Nearly half of Singapore's chicken supply comes from Brazil. And I believe, I've also seen Brazilian beef in the stores. So beef and chicken both. So there'll be activation of supply chains to increase imports of chilled chicken from alternative sources. There's a Singapore Poultry Merchants Association spokesman who says even for countries like US and Brazil, they are too far. Even if importers make their bookings right away, it will arrive only 2 months later. So big deal. Looks like I won't be eating much chicken coming up soon. I mean, in anytime soon. And this is not the only thing that has, faced supply issues. Over in Indonesia, just next door, they've had a series of, stop-start policy changes. So first there was a ban on palm oil exports because there was a shortage of cooking oil. It's very popular to use palm oil as cooking oil in Indonesia. And they had a problem with that because the there was some accusation, some hints of the large distributors hoarding cooking oil because they anticipated that prices would go up, and they were hoarding it, to make more money, or they were sending it overseas, where it could be sold at a higher price. Nobody really knows what the truth of that was, but the government stepped in and said, okay, there'll be an export ban, no more exports temporarily, right, until we sort this thing out. And it appeared to be some back and forth a little until right now, where the government has decided to impose some sort of ruling, saying that you have to sell some percentage of your palm oil locally. Can't sell everything, overseas, and we won't stop you from, we won't ban you from selling overseas either. Let's see, there was a late April export ban to control high domestic prices. And yes, that affected everything. I even saw articles stating that fried chicken outlets in South Korea had to raise their prices because of Indonesian palm oil export constraints. So the president of Indonesia has announced that 3-week-old ban would end next week, but the prices of the cooking oil remains well above the government's target of 14,000 rupiah. So the government will impose a domestic market obligation to ensure that 10 million tons of cooking oil remains at home. So the distributors or producers have to make sure that they sell that much locally, which again, is the right thing to do. Of course, it affects all the countries that rely on Indonesian palm oil, but this is definitely something that they have to do, right? And either way, the distributors, the producers will benefit because they'll have a huge windfall as a result of this. Now, just recently, in fact, as the Indonesian government was sort of digesting the policy about what to do with palm oil, there were protests happening in Jakarta. Now you can see here's a report from Reuters on the protests. Doesn't look very large scale. What they did was they took these palm oil kernels and they processed them in front of the ministry. You can see the police on the right hand side here guarding the premises. So they just got there, chanting slogans, and they processed the palm oil there on the spot and sold it or something. I believe that's what happened. And I want you to notice something. I think I've been told by my Indonesian friends that it's pretty common to hire protesters. If you are a powerful organization and you want to have a protest, you might hire protesters who will do the protesting on your behalf. You don't have to actually go by yourself, right? And you can, if you pay close attention, notice how everybody's wearing the same plain white t-shirt and they have all these signs printed out, right? And you can see this gentleman here even has the slogan, Selamatkan Petani Sawit, which is save the palm oil farmers, on his hat. See the same one over here and back here, and they have this band around their body. So that begs the question of, so if these are farmers, right, and they had to travel all the way to Jakarta to have their protest, how is it that they got these t-shirts printed? Looks like clean, high quality t-shirts. Nobody came without the t-shirt. Like all the farmers got the memo or, got a hold of the t-shirt. And wouldn't they come from different places? And some of them would have, some of them wouldn't. And then some would have the, who would get the headband printed, right? Maybe some portion of some small group would have the t-shirt, but then there's the headband, and then there's all these signs which look well produced, like properly formatted with printing, and colors, right? And then even the flags. Doesn't that look a little too well produced? So it gives a lot of credibility to what I heard, to me at least, that a lot of the protests, they may look organic, they may look impressive, but they might be, they might not be organic at all. in fact might be powerful interests backing the protests. So that's just something I wanted to say about the Indonesian palm oil protests. But it is clear, without a doubt, that there are shortages like cropping up here and there. It seems like from COVID, coming out of COVID, it seems like there's just endless crises. We're having supply chain issues after coming out of COVID, and then there's food shortage, there's chicken shortage here, and palm oil shortage there. It's just terrible. And against this backdrop, I'll move on to the next topic. Yeah. Against this backdrop, the Quad leaders have met in Tokyo. The Quad meaning the quadrilateral dialogue, I think. So these are 4 countries, namely Australia, the United States, Japan, and India. And they vow to oppose attempts to change the status quo with force, with China and Russia on their minds. So the leaders of these 4 countries met in Tokyo to talk about matters of mutual concern, right? So there's a bunch of stuff that they talked about. I'll take you through it very briefly. Prime Minister of Japan, Kishida, underscored that the grouping was a forum to discuss and advance practical cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. Thus, countries as far away as Australia, somewhere down south, and India, all the way to one side of Asia. So from such disparate parts of Asia coming together to discuss areas of practical cooperation, right? I am not targeting any particular country. No. But still, we're talking about maritime security. So let's see. Among the topics discussed were the new Indo-Pacific Partnership for Maritime Domain Awareness. That's the worst ever acronym I ever heard. IPEF. Who cares? So it's a US-led maritime initiative that promises to transform the ability of partners in the Pacific Islands, Southeast Asia, Indian Ocean to monitor the waters on their shores. Which really begs the question, were they not able to monitor the waters on their shores before this? What were they doing before that? So this is utterly pointless diplomatic gibberish, right? Because clearly they must have been monitoring their waters before this, and they will continue to do that after this. And whatever changes that they're implementing is totally opaque. We have no idea. So added that application now being accepted for the Quad Fellowship, a new program sponsoring 100 American, Australian, Indian, and Japanese students per year, 25 from each country, to do these STEM degrees in the United States. Gosh, that sounds really, minuscule, right? 25. I can't imagine that that makes any kind of a dent in the number of whether Australian, Indian, Japanese students going to the United States every year, or even the United States is here 100 Americans, so 25 American students will get the Quad Fellowship, which probably isn't very impressive for them. It's like, okay, so I got a fellowship and I just stay in my own country, right? The other guys get to travel and they get to go somewhere new and they actually have a new experience. But I just maybe I'll get to go to university. Like if I live in California, maybe I'm pretty much the same as just getting a scholarship from elsewhere. But yeah, maybe it sounds more impressive. I don't get this at all. And what 25 sounds like a rounding error. Like there must be hundreds, if not thousands, of Japanese students, Australian students, Indian students going to study in the United States each year. It seems like such a minor thing. It's not. I don't see how it changes the. It seems like a nice add-on just to make it sound nice, but it doesn't really further. Does it really further some kind of foreign policy goal here? Don't see it. I don't see it at all. Another agenda item was global health security. Washington provide more COVID booster jabs and pediatric vaccine doses to Indo-Pacific countries in greatest need. Right. While India said it will expand vaccine manufacturing capacity. Coincidentally, I just saw a video of the Moderna, Moderna, the pharmaceutical company that makes the vaccines. So he was speaking at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, Davos, Switzerland, and he said that they have something like 700 million doses of their vaccine, Moderna vaccines, that they can't get rid of. There's demand has plummeted all the way, and China doesn't want to take their mRNA vaccines for some reason. So if the Moderna CEO is saying that, guys, I already don't know what to do with all these vaccines, I'm extremely skeptical that what Joe Biden, or Washington, the Joe Biden administration is vowing to do here, provide COVID-19 booster jabs. I'm extremely skeptical that it will be very, very popular. And what is this all about? Because the conference was for these 4 countries of the Quad, and he's saying that now we're going to give these booster jabs to these other Indo-Pacific countries in greatest need. But they didn't attend the conference, and how do you decide that? It just seems like something you just pull out of nowhere, just to say, to show that I have something to show for this conference, right? So that's like a commonality between the announcement of the Quad Fellowship for 100 students and vaccines that nobody wants, according to the Moderna CEO. It just sounds like something, we're trying to put something together that we can tell to the press. So what do? Oh, let's just give 100 scholarships and just help Moderna get rid of their vaccines. So it just really sounds like most underwhelming summit or conference ever. Now, further on that, on climate change, the Quad plans to begin 2 ministerial working groups aimed at developing green shipping corridors. What are green shipping corridors? No explanation, by the way. Now, if it was something like truly revolutionary, say, okay, we're going to have these shipping corridors, maybe we'll have railroads, the railway from, let's say, railway from India, that goes most of the way, let's say, all the way to Singapore, and then after that, by ship to Australia, and that we call that a shipping corridor, and we'll make sure that it's carbon neutral. Okay, that sounds like something really innovative and ambitious. Good or not, I can't say, but at least it's clear what is meant. But it just seems really strange that the green shipping corridor is mentioned with no further explanation, right? Cleaning up supply chains, minimizing methane emissions, and deploying clean hydrogen. So, okay, it sounds like I'm probably on the right track here. That is, it's going to be something about we'll use ships, to container vessels that will be carbon neutral of some sort. It doesn't. It seems to be a little bit all over the place. Doesn't it come across that way? Like these 4 countries are meeting, and they have some common interests. Why does it seem like it's a little all over the place? Now, then there was a Taiwan focus. Look at this. There's a whole section of this article dedicated to Taiwan. And why? Well, because Joe screwed up. So Mr. Biden spoke about Taiwan. Taiwan was not an official item on the agenda. But answering a journalist's questions, Biden voluntarily said yes to the question of, will the United States defend Taiwan? So the White House, Joe's own team, later insisted his remarks did not constitute a departure from Washington's policy of strategic ambiguity, meaning I don't say whether or not we will, defend Taiwan. Of course, I leave it open. I don't want to commit either way. But I saw the video where Biden just went to the question, like, will the United States defend Taiwan? Yes. No explanation, nothing else. Just plain yes. It was hilarious. And now, hilariously, his own team says, "Oh no. Yeah, it's this is not a departure. He's not to be taken seriously on this. Don't take the president seriously, please." Now, there's a little more to be said about this Quad meeting before we get more into Biden, and that is Singapore has agreed to join Biden's Indo-Pacific Pact. So also at the Quad, it was announced that there will be an Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Right, I think it's announced around the same time. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Quad meeting was arranged and the Indo-Pacific framework was announced so that Biden could have a chat with the 4 countries of the Quad and try to get them to sign on board so that he can announce it, announce the Indo-Pacific framework at the Quad summit. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. So, Prime Minister Lee of Singapore joined the event, announcing the IPEF, as they call it, virtually. And yeah, he had a few things to say about it. It was reported here that US President Joe Biden, now on a trip to Asia, is pushing the proposed IPEF as a tool to enhance cooperation with Asian partners. So it's called the Asia-Pacific Economic Framework, right? Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, right? But the administration made it clear it's not a free trade agreement. Does that scramble your brains? Because it did when I read that. That is, we're calling it the economic framework, but there's nothing in it, it's nothing in it about free trade. What? Then what is it? It's a set of standards for the digital economy supply chain. So basically, it's a bunch of bureaucratic rules. So we're just trying to get everybody. Joe Biden came in the summit and said, everybody, let's all agree on using, centimeter, inches when we for our measurements. Let's all agree to use Bitcoin, for instance, for supply chains. If my ships are unavailable, could you lend me your ships? That sort of thing. Does it help in any way? Like, I don't know. Like, these are bunch of very bureaucratic. Seems like a bunch of very bureaucratic things. So we're agreeing on a set of standards. That's it. Sustainable food and agriculture. And okay, you could make an argument that these are important to have, but it hardly seems like the kind of thing that you would want the heads of all these countries, of which there are 13. Let's see. There's supposed to be 13 countries that are joining the IPEF, and you need to get that. Do you need that higher level of engagement to get agreement on this sort of thing? It seems like the smallest possible thing you can achieve. It's abysmal. And the article makes it clear. China, on the other hand, is emphasizing trade pacts because trade makes money and everybody wants to make money. It's already a member of something called the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. And it's also going to join something called the CPTPP, which is a successor to an old trade pact that never happened called the TPP, back from the Barack Obama days. So, under President Barack Obama, the U.S. was the driving force of the predecessor to the CPTPP, which is TPP, which is set to become a huge free trade deal. It changed with the rise of election of President Donald Trump. Notice how there's former President Barack Obama here, but there's no former President Donald Trump here. Tells you everything you need to know about Nikkei Asia, their attitude towards the Orange Man, right? So the Biden administration has made it clear that they will not be revisiting the CPTPP, citing considerable backlash from Americans about offshoring and outsourcing of jobs. Right. So, Obama was in favor of TPP. He was pushing for it, and Trump withdrew from it. Biden now says that Americans are against it due to offshoring and outsourcing. Note that Biden doesn't say Trump was wrong. And the article here, even though it's unfavorable to Donald Trump, does not go so far as to say that, well, Trump was wrong. Actually, it's a terrific idea, and we should totally be supporting it. Everybody will jump on board. No. Because seems that Joe Biden, he can't make the case. I mean, if it is indeed advantageous, perhaps maybe Donald Trump poisoned the well. He convinced everybody that you'll lose your jobs. But if it's truly advantageous, can you not make the case, right? Because surely as the president, you'd be able to build a case and convince your countrymen, right? But on the other hand, one thing that even Trump critics would admit is that the man knew how to make a deal. And he knew how to judge a deal. And he looked at the TPP and he said, that's a terrible deal. His whole persona was the guy who makes deals. So we can't be sure how Trump would have done here, this specific context. We can confidently say that, oh man, Joe Biden is not a guy who knows how to make deals. He just isn't, right? And Prime Minister Lee said the nascent Biden framework is not quite a substitute for the TPP. Yes, because you know what? It's not a free trade deal. He's so polite, Prime Minister Lee. It's not quite a substitute, sir. Here's a free trade deal. You get to trade so much. There'll be so much money being made. And here's this other tiny little one. We call it a deal, but really it's just a set of standards that we have to sign on to, so that you have to use the correct unit of measurement, like centimeters here instead of inches. Is that a substitute? Not quite, according to Prime Minister Lee. Yeah, Mr. You're too nice. It's absolutely not. Now I can tell you more about Mr. Biden and the Taiwan Gaff. It overshadowed his attendance, at this Quad summit. Check it out again from Nikkei Asia. Biden's Taiwan comment sparks uncertainty over strategic ambiguity. It's the third statement by the president on island defense and is not dismissed as a gaffe. He's done it several times now. So he did it. Let's see. On Monday, his government would use military force to defend Taiwan. He said yes when asked whether the U.S. would get involved military to defend Taiwan if necessary, adding, "That's a commitment we made." And he has seemed to break with this position before. In an interview last August, the president named Taiwan alongside Japan and South Korea when talking about Washington's commitments to responding to threats. Asked that October whether U.S. would come to Taiwan's defense, Biden replied, "Yes, we have a commitment to do that." So, and then it goes on. This is the president's third comment along these lines. Oh, Joe Biden, and then straight again during that time, right after his administration, White House had to come out and say, "Sorry guys, let's be clear. We're not changing anything." Every time. Now, if you didn't know this about Joe Biden before, that's okay, because why would you know? I mean, it's not like the media covers it all the time. They don't. It happened, but nobody's going to be playing it up. They just let's just write it. One article, bury it on page 5, and call it a day. Right? So, of course, many people are very upset about this slip up by Joe Biden. Right here on the Asia Times, China experts blast Biden's Taiwan slip. And this is my highlight. The Chinese cannot ignore this statement, which is worse than a gaffe because it provides China with a casus belli, which I think is the reason, for war, said former ambassador Chas Freeman, who's now an academic. This is the 4th time. Notice how they don't even agree on how many times, because it just happens so often that they have to kind of pick and choose which incidents they want to include. 4th time that the White House sought to walk back statements by the president committing the U.S. to go to war with China over Taiwan. Such walkbacks have zero credibility in Beijing, not least because they echo a consensus in Washington that is reflected in defense budgets and force structure. So just where you lay out your army, I suppose. Yeah. Big boo-boo. And he keeps doing it. Let's see. Here's the report from over 8 months ago when Joe Biden said exactly that. This is the actual quote. He said, "We have kept every commitment. We made a sacred commitment to Article 5 that if in fact anyone were to invade or take action against our NATO allies, we would respond. Same with Japan, same with South Korea, same with Taiwan." It's not even comparable to talk about that. And he just gave Taiwan, special status to say that, oh yeah, Taiwan's included, even though they're not. And if you think, okay, so all right, Joe Biden, he messed up with Taiwan. I'm I'm sure that's the thing that you just can't. There are things that people have difficulty understanding. So maybe that's his thing. You know, that's the one topic that really trips him up all the time. No, it's not. So over here, Joe Biden had said he thinks Russia will attack Ukraine, warning that Moscow would face a stiff price. But he admitted that NATO was divided on how to respond if there is only a minor incursion. This was stated on 20th January, before the start of the Ukraine war. So the White House was forced to issue a hasty clarification saying that any movement of Russian forces over the border would be treated as an invasion. Why? It's because you're not supposed to reveal that there's disagreement among NATO members on how to respond if there's what may be arguably a minor incursion, right? So, Joe Biden, oh man. And that's not, if you think that, oh, maybe, that's just Joe, okay, but at least, he has people who are on the ball, supporting him, who are ready to step in whenever he makes a mistake, because that's what they've done so far. Arguable, because here we are. Pentagon calls remarks on Senkaku sovereignty an error. Now, there's a spokesman for the U.S. Department of Defense called John Kirby. Let's see, what's the date? Yeah, February last year. He said that his recent remarks that were supporting Tokyo's claims over the sovereignty of the Senkaku Islands were an error. So he had said in public that, the United States support somehow, in his own words, I'm paraphrasing, that the United States supports Japan's claim of sovereignty on the Senkaku Islands. Now, I think the official version is that the United States supports Japan, while not making any kind of taking any position on whether Japan is the party who rightfully can claim the Senkaku. So they don't take a position on that, merely saying that, well, Japan's our ally and we support Japan in whatever Japan does, right? But John Kirby made a mistake and he said, oh no, we recognize Japan's sovereignty over the Senkaku Islands, and that was wrong. So he was forced to issue an apology. So it's not just, and if you thought, wow, okay, but I don't even know who John Kirby is, maybe that's not a big deal. Well, you know who the Secretary of State is, and that is Mr. Blinken. You can see here that you don't even say who he is. He just give you his last name and expect you to know because he's a major figure. So, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, he had to delete a tweet in which he said that the United States would stand with the people of Hong Kong. He had to delete that tweet. What was the tweet like? I'll show it to you. It was here. Beijing should let the voice of all Hong Kongers be heard. So on, so on, so on, so on. We stand with the people of Hong Kong. Right? And on the same day, it was deleted. It was changed to something else. It went like this. PRC's qualification of 7, blah, 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 blah. Notice how it doesn't say anything about we stand with the people of Hong Kong anymore. And the second tweet was criticized by others who said it was weak and questioned why he would delete the earlier tweet. Well, because it was a boo-boo. It was a mistake. I mean, in spirit, I think, many people around the world would say that, I want the people of Hong Kong to have the greatest amount of freedom that is possible. I don't want, them to suffer. But as the highest ranking diplomatic official in the United States government, right, Secretary Blinken can't just say that. And yet it went out. So, as you can see, this appears to be a consistent pattern with the Biden administration, and it's not a good look. Not a good look. And this, not to forget, there was the catastrophic Afghanistan withdrawal, right, where they left billions of dollars of equipment Initially, I heard that it was like $85 billion worth of equipment. Later on, it turns out that, oh no, we didn't leave that much equipment, just a mere like something like $18 billion worth. Like, that's way more. Like just the equipment left in Afghanistan is way more than any of the figures talked about during the ASEAN-US summit. The ASEAN-US summit, there was a memorandum signed, and then the US was going to provide something like $150 million worth of assistance, out of which 60 million was to be in a coast guard vessel to come to ASEAN with some training. 60 million, right? It's just a tiny portion of what was left in Afghanistan. You could have just taken all that equipment and just sent it by land, by postal service over to ASEAN. It would have ended up being way more effective, I suppose. Who knows? I'm just kidding. Also, in my previous video, which I may, I'll try to link around here on the screen or in the description. Joe Biden, he had also been asked to give a statement to North Korea, and his statement, the full extent of his statement in that question, his response was, "Hello, period." That's it. I don't know how he even makes friends. When he was, on the playground as a kid. How? So I've had enough fun at Joe Biden's expense, but it is truly abysmal. And if you're American, I'm sorry that your president is kind of funny, not in a good way. If you're not, then oh my gosh, you'll be a terrible person if you join me in my humor in laughing at this. But you would be my kind of person, is what I mean to say. And that's all the stuff I have for you today. Now, if you enjoyed this little insight into United States foreign policy in Asia, normally extremely boring, but thanks to Joe Biden making it more entertaining. Thank you if you enjoyed it, because I know I did talking to you. You're awesome because you watch my videos, and you'll be even more awesome if you click the like button. Thank you very much. I will be back to join you again real soon, perhaps tomorrow. All right, thank you very much. Have a great time, great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Thank you. Bye-bye.